When I was 12, my parents moved us into a house that had exactly what I needed in the front yard, a tree house. Except, it was unusual looking, just a wooden ladder that extended up to an area with some wooden boards. If I had to guess, I would say the space was big enough to hold 2 full-grown adults. As an only child, but more importantly, a child that my father regretted having, I took every opportunity I had to hide from him in the treehouse. He hated going up there. He usually only made it up a few steps before getting out of breath and climbing back down to yell at my mother. Once he became manager of the factory that he worked at, his pompous behavior became unbearable. He drank heavily and always lashed out at us for not having enough appreciation for his hard work. One evening, while I hung out in the treehouse, I noticed a piece of paper rolled up like a scroll in between 2 branches. Upon unraveling it, I was met with the following. It read, "How to handle an encounter with evil. Step 1. Choose the evil entity. Step 2. Bring a dangerous object into the treehouse and rub it against the sap of a tree branch. Step 3. Bring an object that this evil adores, its most prized possession, into the treehouse to lure the evil entity inside. Step 4. Say these words in front of the evil entity. Rid me of this evil in front of me. Show thy strength." My mind raced with excited thoughts. It was clear whom I considered evil, but I did not know what to expect by going through with the instructions. For all I knew, it was just a note a previous homeowner's kid had written during a game of make-believe, but I wanted to give it a shot. I believed in it. My father had an axe in the shed in the backyard, so that's what I quickly gravitated towards and selected as my dangerous object. After rubbing it against the sticky sap on one of the branches, I placed the axe down on the wooden board. My father's greatest friend was his TV remote. To grab the remote from his hand was a risk itself. He would pummel me if I didn't get away fast enough. During a long gulp of a freshly cracked open beer, I snatched the remote from his right hand. I ran outside and made my way to the top of the treehouse. "Boy, have you gone mad. You really outdid yourself tonight," my father shouted from the bottom of the ladder as I peeked my head over the boards. "After I get my remote back, I'm gonna teach you a lesson you will never forget." When he made it to the top, my father's face was beet red, comical and horrifying at the same time. I was starting to regret my decision as he clenched his fists. "Rid me of this evil in front of me. Show thy strength," I yelled. "What kind of comic book horseshit are you spewing? You think this is one of your superhero fantasies?" My father barely just got to the top of the floorboard. His head brushed up against some of the branches. As he reached for my throat, I noticed some movement behind him, above him, all around us. The branches. They were sprouting something sharp, like tiny axes. Hundreds of axes were growing out of the branches. I gasped and rubbed my eyes. My father was so fixated on me that he did not even react until the first branch struck his back, and then another, and another. Branches swayed and slithered and carved bloody holes into my father. Within 10 seconds, he was unrecognizable. He fell in front of me. As I crawled over him, the branches receded, allowing me to make my exit. Standing atop of the ladder, my hands trembled as I watched the wooden boards fold like a book, crushing my father inside. The boards proceeded to transform and morph into just another tree branch. Terrified at what I was witnessing, I lost my balance and tumbled down the ladder, hitting my jaw against a branch. My mother heard me wailing and ran outside over to me. They never found my father. I told people what happened, but they didn't buy it. They think he just ran away from home. There was no blood in the treehouse, no evidence. Even my mother thinks he removed the boards from the treehouse in an act of frustration before abandoning us. With my mother jobless, We had to sell the house with her sister's help. Before we moved into her sister's place, I climbed the ladder one final time, looking for something, anything, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. But then I saw it, a rolled up piece of paper amongst the sea of branches, the same paper with the instructions, and I soon realized that I missed one last step. I had never looked at the back of the paper. It read, "Final step. After the evil entity is removed, do not tell others what happened. Failure to follow this final step will result in catastrophic consequences." I think I've been bitten by something. I haven't seen it in person, but I have heard it. At night, it's been scratching at the walls of my home. Sometimes I've heard it tapping at my bedroom window. It started after a recent vacation. I had wanted to stay at a log cabin because I'd never been to one before, so I booked one last weekend. It was okay, not something I'd do again. Too many spiders. At first, things were fine. Nothing noteworthy happened, but on the second day, I noticed claw marks on the outside of the cabin. I thought maybe it was a bear or something and forgot about it. That night though, that's when things started to get odd. I heard something screaming in the distance. It wasn't exactly a human scream, but like it had been distorted into something more beastly. After hearing that scream, I decided to go home. Unfortunately, my car was parked about 10 minutes from where I was staying. What if whatever made that noise found me before I got to my car? I thought it was worth the risk and started packing my things. I exited the cabin and left the keys on a windowsill next to the door. I made my way as quietly as I could down the path to the parking area. The creature screamed again. This time it sounded a lot closer. I hid behind a tree and took a moment to make sure that it had not seen me. I looked around slowly and couldn't see anything other than the trees and the cabin that I'd left. I started running down the path, thinking it was safe to get to the car as quickly as possible. I heard something growl and noticed footsteps other than my own. I ran faster and made it to the car. I made it home, and for the first day or two back home, things seemed back to normal. I woke up this morning with a pain in my neck, and when I got out of bed, I stepped on some glass. My bedroom window had been broken. I called the police and put some clothes on. Now, I'm not sure what they could do to help, but I didn't know what else to do. Now I hear the sirens, and I'm starting to feel very, very hungry. What's up, campers? And thank you so much for listening. If you have any stories that you would like to be heard on the channel, click the description below to see how you could submit a story to the channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I mean, we got s'mores, campfires, and of course, scary stories. But that's all the stories that I have for you guys tonight. And yes, that noise you hear in your closet, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Stay haunted, my friends. I'll see you next time.